Hello, and welcome back to the MCAT grind. We have Psych Chapter 7, Psychological Disorders. This is the big chapter with a lot of disorders to memorize and be familiar with for the MCAT. Starting in the beginning, we have schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is translated directly to split mind, but it is not splitting of personalities in the mind, rather the splitting of the mind from the reality. So think about as detachment from reality, and the positive symptoms would include thinking about hallucinations and distortion of what is real and what's not. And the negative symptoms will be lacking emotions and reduced thoughts and attachments to social behaviors. In depressive psychological disorder, depression is common, about 1 in 15, and it occurs when you have lowered mood, and it generally could be caused by decreased serotonin levels, decreased norepinephrine levels, and it is common, so it will be marked by reduced it will be increased lackluster response to previous engagement activities they thought was great. So it could lead to negative thoughts and feelings, and generally just not a good disorder overall. Bipolar disorder are split into 1 and 2. Bipolar 1 is categorized by having a manic episode and may or may not have a major depressive episode. A manic episode will be elevated mood, such as super hyper and optimistic, but that is categorized as not good because of the surge in super optimistic for the future just in one small episode, but marked by depressive episode afterwards, potentially for 1. And for 2, bipolar 2, you may have a hypomanic episode, which is a little less elevated mood, but it's still elevated nonetheless, but at least one major depressive episode to go along with it. You could also have cyclothymic bipolar disorder, which is a continuous cycle of depressive and manic episodes. Anxiety disorder is marked by increasing anxiousness in situations. So it is similar to having panic attack, where it's like the level below panic attack, where there are no huge reason, but there is some underlying causes for the anxiety, but feel an elevated sympathetic nervous system stimulation. And that could cause sweating, wanting to get away from situation, and just general heart beating faster and increase in sympathetic response. OCD is obsessive compulsive disorder, and it's marked by 2 things: the obsession and the compulsion. Obsession will be marked by, let's say I'm going to see my hands, and I touched object, and I was like, okay, my hand is now dirtied, and that is a obsession. Like, it's dirty now. I need to get clean hands. Then the compulsion will be going to resolve this issue and washing my hands to get the germs off. So the obsession, think of it as the problem, and the compulsion is the solution, and you must want to resolve that obsession using your compulsion. The body dysmorphia is unreal body image, like self-image, that you think that you're lackluster with yourself with, and unreal expectations upon your own body. And it is prevalent in across many youths today because of the prevalence of social media elevating what the body image should be and setting unrealistic standards. So it is also highly prevalent in the bodybuilding community because people are big and we want to get big. PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder. After a stressful event, you have your memory that especially evokes the same emotional response after thinking of that event, and would trigger very deep emotions that are typically negative and fearful and anxious. So that is PTSD. Dissociative disorders are categorized by several. So dissociative identity disorder, where you don't think of your identity as the same one, but you could also have another identity, another personality, and which is categorized by dissociative fugue. You have an episode where you're like, no, I live under a different name, I have a different job, I have a different personality or identity in general. Dissociative could also categorize with depersonalized disorder, which you no longer feel like you're yourself. You're like not in control with your body, and your body is doing things that you don't really agree with. Next, we have somatic disorder. Somatic disorder would be feeling a body part that has some kind of issue. Perhaps my arm has this cut. Then I start thinking, okay, this cut is worse than I thought. I'm gonna need a big help. I really need help on this. And although like the issue is not that big. Illness anxiety is, even though you may not have any illness, you start thinking, okay, what if I have this? What if I have that? What if I have terminal disease? You start get anxious about having an illness. Conversion disorder is unexplained sudden somatic symptom resulted by a past event. For instance, a mother could have lost her child, and then a few months later she starts experiencing hearing loss, so it could be resulted from a past event and causing the somatic symptoms. We also have Alzheimer's, which is categorized with the symptoms of unable to make new memories, but however can recall the very old ones. Alzheimer's could be led from reduced acetylcholine in the brain, and it could also have genetic disposition, such as chromosome 1 and 14 mutations, and also on 19, as well as on 21. So that's the reason why individuals with Down syndrome have more likelihood to have Alzheimer's. Parkinson's disease is marked by less smooth movement in muscle and motor function. They could see jittery fingers, and they could see shuffled gait. And those with Parkinson's are lacking in dopamine in their basal ganglia. So it could be resolved by administering L-DOPA, which is a precursor to the dopamine, and put it in a substantia nigra to help increase the dopamine levels and help smooth the motor functions. Next, we have whole categories of personality disorders. We have cluster A, odd, B is emotional, C is anxious. In cluster A, odd, we have paranoid personality disorder, where you just display distrust over others. Schizotypical occurs that you have magical thinking and you think you're above everyone else and you're dreaming of super successful of yourself. Schizoid is you're retracting from social situations and events and you don't really have many friends. Cluster B is emotional. You could be antisocial, and this is marked by majority, at least 50% of prison inmates, because they lack empathy towards others and think others don't have rights. And marked by lots of murderers and people who've committed harsh crimes lacking empathy for their victims. Borderline personality disorder is where you start to be categorizing things as angels or devils. You mark everyone as either good or bad. So very much splitting people into either categories. And you get very upset at people often, and you jump ship a lot. Histrionic means that you really like attention. Narcissistic, you also like attention, but you have a really, really positive self-image and you like yourself a lot. But they also have very low self-esteem. In cluster C, anxious, you have avoidant personality disorder, which you tend to avoid things that stress you out. Dependent personality disorder is that you depend on others and you depend on someone else to make the initiative, and yourself is less capable of making those initiatives. OCPD is obsessive compulsive personality disorder. It's different from OCD, because in OCPD, it is more so of ego focused. You want to be a perfectionist. You want to do this. Instead of OCD, you don't want the O, and you exert the compulsive disorder to resolve that. OCPD, you want to strive for success and perfectionist, and you want to keep rules. You want to stay in line with good morals. Alright, that's it for psychological disorders. Take care.